Isaac Asimov once said, "Science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom." Artificial intelligence and biotechnology are reshaping power. Innovation accelerates, governance struggles, data becomes strategic, digital sovereignty becomes security. Technology will advance. The question is how it will be governed. Welcome to the panel, Digital Futures, AI, Governance, and Ethics of Innovation.
Great. Well, we'll start now. It's a real honor to moderate such a distinguished panel at this year's Global Baku Forum. As you can see, we are the largest panel, I think, in the Baku Forum's history, probably. So our panel members have very kindly agreed to each speak for no more than 3 minutes initially, because I'm determined that we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience at the end. Our panel topic is a very timely one: digital futures, AI, governance, and the ethics of innovation. And we have an incredible depth of knowledge on this issue in our panel. So with no further ado, I'm delighted that Rashad Nabiyev, the Minister of Digital Development and Transport of the Republic of Azerbaijan, is able to be with us. So, Rashad, if I could ask you the first question. Can governance frameworks realistically keep pace with frontier AI and cyber operations?
Thank you, Sam. Let me first of all warmly welcome our distinguished guest to Baku. It's a pleasure to share this panel with our such experienced group of leaders. And going back to your question, yes, governance can keep up with AI, cyber, and biotechnology, but only if we stop thinking of governance as something very much static. The biggest challenge today is timing trap. And if we regulate too early, we risk killing innovation. And if we wait too long, we can actually evidence a lot of risks which we cannot be able to dealing with. And so the real task is to find the governance, the sweet spot when rules that are very much flexible and enough for innovation, but at the same time strong to make sure that we protect our society, we protect our kids, and etc. And the way to do this is through governance in cycles, setting clear rules, testing them in real world conditions, and learning from the mistakes which you have made, and also updating your legal regulatory framework in a very continuous way and making sure that there is a proper governance in place. In Azerbaijan, we are trying and attempting to apply this, and the good news is that we also courageous enough to learn from our mistakes, and we accept the fact that you cannot foresee everything in practice and to reflect it in legislation from the day one. And you shouldn't be ashamed of changing your legislation, regulatory framework from time to time. And we have done so within the last several years. We adopted our digital strategy, we adopted our cybersecurity strategy, and at the same time, AI strategy. We put it in practice, we learned from our mistakes, and quite recently, we updated this vision and which adopted another document which actually reflects whatever the mistakes we have had in practice. And one of the biggest things that we are also able to introduce within our framework, which actually a part of our political culture, when the government has a very good, I would say, relationships with the parliament, adapting the rules and laws within the weeks whereas in some countries it takes years, and that actually puts a lot of impediments and stumbling blocks in putting forward the innovation. And one of the other areas we are been very much successful so far is introduction to the sandbox regime. When you give certain areas within the economy, like fintech, healthcare, education, specific rules which are very much overseen by the governments, and if that works, then you go back and scale them up. So in a nutshell, I think you can do such things within the government when the proper regulation and regulatory framework in place, and you also as a government have enough tools to govern the process in such a way that you protect your population, you protect your government from all the threats coming for innovation and digital development, but at the same time making sure that there's a proper ecosystem in place just for your society to be innovative.
Thank you very much, Minister. First of all, for keeping to time, and secondly, for that really insightful reflection, I think, of Azerbaijan as a regional leader in the governance of new technology. Mari Kiviniemi, you have been Prime Minister of Finland and many other roles in the past. I would like you, if you could, to build on this theme that the Minister has talked about. How can governance realistically keep pace with frontier AI without suffocating innovation, as he put it, but also to add, what are the non-negotiables that you feel for keeping humans in control and building public trust in this area?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation to attend this global forum. It is the first time for me in Baku, and also first time participating in this high-level forum, so really happy to be here and in this beautiful city. But directly answering to your question, I think that, of course, AI can be regulated because it is an innovation made by human beings. So what is created by human beings, it can be also governed by us. But I understand also that people are very worried about the situation now. According to US survey from December last year, 77% of Americans said that they are concerned that AI could pose a threat to humanity, and 68% said that they would not trust AI to act on their behalf without reviewing each action. And another opinion poll, IOP's Monitor from 25, which covers 30 countries, discovered that 52% of people said that AI-powered products and services make them nervous. So this is a clear message from citizens from all over the world that we have to be able to govern and regulate AI in a way that people can trust in it. But I'm also kind of optimistic about the situation right now because there is already quite a lot of good regulation in this area. European Union is, of course, kind of the best example of it. Its AI Act and related legislation provides an excellent basis also for other countries to be sure that the development of AI goes into the right directions and we can be able to keep human in charge. But also at the global level, there are other examples. OECD and UNESCO, with their recommendations and principles, has created a good basis for kind of global regulation. And also the Council of Europe AI Convention is an excellent example of that, where we all, in all countries, should base the development of this technology. And Also, the UN governance process, there will be now in July the meeting and the Global Forum in Geneva again, and the steps which have been taken in the framework of United Nations are excellent in order to kind of trying to create and achieve a global basis, because that would be, of course, the best one, to have global rules which all can accept and follow, kind of those principles which we all think that will be best in order to make sure that human beings will be in charge and ruling the technology. So what are the key words when creating the regulations and rules? Transparency and accountability are, of course, the basis. You have to be able to disclose when AI is used, label synthetic content where relevant, and so on. And when it comes to accountability, we have to be able to name responsible owners. Also, human oversight, which I already said, is utmost important. So there have to be clear thresholds for when a human must decide, escalation routes, and also effective stop buttons and safe fallbacks. Quality and evidence, so strong data governance, testing and validation, and continuous monitoring, and also safety and security, robust cybersecurity, stress testing, and protection against misuse, including deception and deepfakes, and fairness and inclusion. And this is one of the principles which we really make where we really have to succeed, so that we are able to create that kind of AI which is accessible in all the parts of the world, and also among those who are already advanced. So if we get these principles to be basis for the regulation, I think that this really can help build trust. But to conclude, I would like to underline 2 points. First is that I think that we have to make sure that private sector is very closely linked to this governance discussion at all the stages, at the national but also at the global level, and concerning also the UN level. So we have to have a very deep dialogue with the regulators and with the decision makers and the business sector in order to create then solid regulation. And then when it comes to citizens, AI is not only about regulation, it's also about education. We have to make sure that AI literacy is a basic civic and professional skill. And then I'm not only talking about schools and teachers training, but also public administration, workplaces, and also the ones who don't belong to these groups. This is a challenge to all the countries to make sure that we all are equipped with those skills which are needed in today's world of AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. And you brought up many critical themes, including the importance of trust in this area and also inclusivity. And I did want to just note, I take part in many such technology governance panels around the world. I think this is the first time I've been in one where the majority of the participants are women. And so I do want to congratulate NGIC on that. It's really worth noting, and we need to ensure that governance is made by both men and women. I'd like to turn now to Tulia Ackson, who's the president of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and previously served as a speaker to the National Assembly of Tanzania. We're really delighted to have you here. I'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts on what's the role of parliaments in the governance and regulation of AI.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to echo what my colleagues have already said. We thank this forum for bringing all of us here to be able to discuss issues of interest that are affecting all of us, but also now from a parliamentary dimension, the people that we represent. So our role is literally to legislate, and my two colleagues here have spoken about regulation, but currently the feeling is that AI is in the hands of the private enterprise, but at the same time in the executive arm of state. So as parliamentarians, what we have been trying to do is to show the shortcomings of this general setup, in the sense that how this AI is developed, how it's being used. And so when you're talking about developing it, we want transparency to be there. But at the same time, when you involve the government, then you see what my colleague has just spoken here, the question of accountability. These private firms are not really responsible to parliaments. You know, they develop the products which are used all over the place, and I'm glad you have talked about inclusivity. And on this one, when they are developing it, they are developing according to their own environments, and at times they don't really consider the needs of other places, which are also going to be consumers of what they actually create or develop. For instance, the engagement of the Global South in this field is very limited, because most of these tools that are being used, they're developed elsewhere, but they have to be consumed or they have to be used in other places. And in this case, you would see that the Inter-Parliamentary Union, what we have done so far, we have already adopted a resolution that is giving now the kind of showing the shortfalls of what is existing at the moment, including the impact of AI on democracy or democratic processes, but also the impact of AI on human rights. And here you will talk about deep fakes and how they affect people's lives. And so we look at them in that sense. And what we are demanding as parliamentarians is that not only that we have to legislate, but we would want to see transparency in these processes, so that there is no democratic process that is affected, but also human rights that are being affected. But also on our role now as oversight bodies, we would want to see a situation where it's not only the government being involved in this process with the private enterprise that are developing these tools, but to see how actually the parliaments can get engaged in terms of being able to call these private enterprises to the parliaments, being able to respond to different committees. And we have seen this happening in few countries. And we would want to see that in other countries also taking a lead in this area. And that said, I would like to commend a number of countries that are doing well in terms of setting up the committees to hold these enterprises, private enterprises, responsible, but also exercising their oversight role in this area. So I would say this is a forum that has brought all of us here, and I would urge all of us, when we go back to our respective countries, let's give our parliaments cooperation so that they are able to legislate on this and regulate, but also being able to exercise their oversight role in terms of having the powers to call these private enterprises to the parliaments to answer the concerns that come from the people, because in the end, parliaments are the institutions that represent the people, and people's voices have to be heard, how AI is developed, how it's being used, and whatever the positives it has, we also have to consider the negatives that it comes with it.
Thank you so much, and I loved that you ended with a clear action point for all of us to go home and ensure that our parliaments act as an oversight function to ensure human rights and transparency. Thank you so much. So turning now to my good friend, Milica Pejanovic-Durisic. I would love you, from your background as Minister of Defense in Montenegro and many other distinguished roles, to talk about, in the context of the current geopolitical tensions, if you could answer, does technological bifurcation risk, so the risk of creating permanently incompatible innovation ecosystems, is that a risk? Is it likely to happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. So first of all, I would also like to thank our hosts, Nizami Gandrawi International Center, to putting together at these challenging times an event like this with such a comprehensive agenda. We are dealing with a number of issues which are one more than the other. So on this technology panel, which we are usually having on the events of this kind, usually we are discussing the issues which are related with technology in the sense of everything happening with the artificial intelligence and the way how we can contribute towards the regulation. I'm glad you asked me something else because with my also experience as a scholar in telecommunications engineering, I've been very much following what is happening for decades now, and I'm sure you will all share the observation with me that in the last 30 years, we all were witnessing an environment, a global environment, where actually the global technology system was largely very much converging. Innovation, even at that time, was happening in different places, but on the other side, the underlying infrastructure, which means standards, supply chains, different platforms, they tended more to connect than to divide, of course. Today, what we are starting to observe is this technological bifurcation, which is essentially the possibility that the global innovation system could split into parallel ecosystems with different supply chains, standards, platforms, and even research networks. There, much of the discussion obviously is focused on tensions which are between United States and China, but the implications are global. They are not located in these two countries. So we can already see the signs of what is happening in several sectors. Take semiconductors, for example. Actually, a chip could be designed in one place, in one country. It could be assembled and manufactured in another country, and then embedded in a product that is used globally in a third country. Well, actually, this assumption is greatly under the pressure. And why? Because we are having these export controls, we are having these industrial policies which are beginning to redraw such a landscape. Actually, what we are having are those restrictions on exports, and then, of course, all these push towards the domestic semiconductor capacities to be developed, not only, whatever, whether it is in US, China, or Europe, and that is actually gradually creating more regionally aligned technological stacks as such. Another example is telecommunication infrastructure. So, of course, I lived in the times when the decision about the technology you put as a telecommunication network was a poorly and exclusively a kind of engineering decision. Today, with the 5G rollout, it's not anymore the case. So we do know that it became a strategic geopolitical decision. And there were a number of countries that were actually forced, or they decided, to make strategic choices which suppliers and ecosystems they will be deploying. So something similar is emerging in artificial intelligence as well. Different regulatory models access to computers, data governance frameworks, they all actually are shaping how artificial intelligence systems are developed and deployed. So the question we should be discussing is actually the critical one. Does this trend risk creating permanently incompatible innovation ecosystems? My personal view is that partial fragmentation is real and it's likely to grow. But I don't believe that the complete technological separation is an unlikely event. So I do believe that there are two reasons why I'm such a firm in that kind of belief. First, innovation ecosystems thrive on interdependence. Economic and scientific incentives to maintain interoperability between them are extremely strong. Advantages of common standards are evident since fragmented systems increase costs, reduce markets, slow innovation. Second, much of the technological stack is simply too complex and too globally distributed to be that cleanly divided, even when governments try to localize production. Still, we have knowledge, talent, and capital which will continue to flow across borders. Therefore, I do believe that it is unlikely to see a fully split of technological world. What we are more likely to see is a kind of layered bifurcation, separation in these sensitive technologies, but continued interoperability at the level of the rest of the stack. And then, of course, the layers like, I don't know, advanced semiconductors, defense-related artificial intelligence, certain digital infrastructure, there might be indeed a tighter separation. But then at other layers like consumer platforms, scientific collaboration as such, open source software, many other digital services, I think there are incentives to maintain that integration and compatibility are still very strong. So there is another point which is, I do believe, worth exploring. Yes, it is actually the consequences of this environment for countries that are not at the center of these big competing ecosystems. So these states will increasingly be in a position to face decisions about standards, infrastructure, and partnerships that effectively align them with one technological sphere or another, meaning that actually these decisions will be very tightly linked to geopolitics, and actually we will be in a situation to face the fact that innovation and access to innovation might increasingly depend on geopolitical alignment. And that is something we've got to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's an incredibly kind of insightful answer to a very complex question. So thank you. And I think what comes out of your answer is that for probably all the states other than the US and China who are seeking to manage AI sovereignty across the full stack, that it's not just about trying to develop national capabilities, it's actually about how do you manage dependencies in a rapidly changing geopolitical, geoeconomic environment. And I think you touched on so many aspects of that, so thank you so much. Next, if I could turn to Silvana Koch-Mehrin, the current president and founder of Women Political Leaders, and formerly a vice president of the European Parliament. I know you've got some slightly different insights to what we've heard already on the key question of how can governance frameworks kind of realistically keep pace with frontier AI, cyber and biotechnological innovations. So really looking forward to hearing your views.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. And I suppose it's no surprise that this question is the question of choice of the many panelists here. After all, we're not the Mobile World Congress or yet another tech congregation in San Francisco. The Global Baku Forum has first and foremost very high-level politicians attending, so the question of what do politicians, what do those who decide on the rules of society can do to answer the concerns of citizens is at the forefront of those discussions. And my answer to your question would be that yes, absolutely, it's possible to govern AI. And it's possible if we move away from the question that government is always running behind technological innovation. That mindset is a mindset that is imposed by those who always talk about any kind of boundaries being regulatory dead ends for innovation. So if we abandon this mindset but look at governance as the ability of democratic institutions to continuously deliver on the rules in which societies operate, going back to the values of what holds us as societies together, then yes, we can definitely deliver on that. And it's really about those incredibly powerful technologies entering each and every aspect of our societies. Some of you remember when the first genetic modifications became possible. And we got all extremely worried. Will this be the end of humanity? Will this be the end of the way we lived? And it was through regulation, through setting boundaries, that humans, that we as policymakers, were able to frame this. And I would like to really talk about the basically global gold standard in AI regulation, which is the European Union's AI Act. Now, the European Union, there's the saying that we're over-regulating. If you look at the data that Mari mentioned in the US, that 70%, you said, of the citizens are worried about the impact of AI. And this is in the country that is the self-proclaimed champion of innovation. If the majority of citizens is worried about the development, well, there's something wrong. The EU gets this right. The EU looks at what is the risk and what are the safety standards that we need to set. So it's very smart by saying the more powerful a system is, the bigger the responsibility of this system. So some elements the Act bans right away, like, for example, at the workplace, emotional surveillance. The people who work there can be surveyed by AI, by their facial, by their body expressions, and this can be used to evaluate, for example, performance. This is something the EU does not allow. It says it's going too far into the privacy. Or predictive policing, something that's used already in the United States, that through AI algorithms, you predict how likely is it that somebody becomes a criminal again, which then impacts, can she or he get out on parole, or will she be continuously in detainment? Something not allowed. Other elements is that there are stronger obligations, for example, when it comes to critical infrastructure. If AI management is introduced for traffic, for gas, for water supply, they are in a way stronger obligations. And of course, if we look at the impact on, let's say, environment, on labor market, the transparency requirements are increased through the EU AI Act because predictions are that global artificial intelligence energy consumption will soon exceed the energy consumption of the country of Japan, which, as you know, is a high energy consuming place. So this doesn't matter only in the EU, this matters around the world. If you look at the success story of GDPR, because of the so-called Brussels effect, the European Union has the biggest market, the strongest economic impact. So the rules for any company wanting to deal with inside the EU are the ones that European Union companies also need to follow, which means that's why I talk about the global golden standard, not only the European one. So just finally, the predictable pushback again is, well, that's over-regulation, this will kill innovation. But let me just finish by saying the opposite is the case. if you've got regulatory chaos, unpredictable government, if you've got public distrust, if you've got legal uncertainty, and you've got concentration of power in the few hands of unaccountable tech bros, that's what kills innovation, and that's what kills the societal stronghold that we need to move forward with innovation. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Silvana, really insightful. I want to turn now to Mehdi Jomaa, who, in the spirit of the Baku Forum, when he was Prime Minister of Tunisia, was a remarkable bridge builder. And so I salute you for your contribution there. And also, I think you bring something quite unique for a Prime Minister of a deep technical background before you came into politics. So I'd like to ask you, how can AI be integrated into early warning and crisis response systems without creating new dependencies?
Thank you very much. I'm surprised that you are asking me this question. You know, all my career, I was dealing with crisis. I don't know how you knew it, but again, a question about how to manage crisis. And so I think that it's a huge opportunity with artificial intelligence because it's rapidly transforming this early warning and the crisis management, crisis response system with its ability to analyze in a quick time, to collect data and analyze in a quick time many of the data. You know, we are speaking about, let's take the example of the pandemics or the climate disasters. And we know how it's crucial today to get a quick and accurate analysis and a quick response in a quick time. So it allows to improve our way and the accuracy and to simulate as well and to vehicle or to inform in the crisis management quickly. But we have to pay attention to one thing. It presents some risks as well. Many risks and the quality and the efficiency of the use of artificial intelligence is in our way to fix the framework and to set up some rules. I think one of the major errors that we can make is to be dependent, completely dependent, and to wait from artificial intelligence to be a decision maker. No, it's a decision supporter. It allows us to get really in a quick time a maximum of data because it's able to cross the data from satellites, from sensors, from analysis, from the reaction of the people, from the social media, from many sources of data that we can cross in a quick time, which is really a big chance. But never give the algorithms to decide, and mainly in such a crisis. So the first rule to respect is that one. It's a supporting our decision, but it's our responsibility, our duty, and we have to keep the control, the human control on that. The other risk is the dependency. You know, today we are dependent on some vendor locking and some tools. We have to pay attention, and maybe when we are at a political position, the responsibility of the country and the people and their lives, to not to make this strategic error to be dependent of locked softwares. You have really to pay attention to that. We can really risk a disaster. And so on, we have the infrastructure, the database, who was owning that, what is the access to that. And then to design the system with the right architecture. When we fail in the crisis, it's not a lack of intelligence, it's a lack of structure of architecture and organization. And even with artificial intelligence, we have to respect rules, but we have to design an architecture that enables us before the crisis is arriving, enables us to audit the system, to check. You know, we have other systems that could inspire us with a proven and return of experience. I worked a couple of years for aerospace, for example, industry, and you know today to pilot an aircraft, everything is automatically, but the decisions are made by the pilots. Whatever the progress we made with that, it's their responsibility, and we know with the experience that in some cases without the human control, but to reach a performance system, a non-risky system, we have to be careful about the transparency, our access, our capability to audit, and not to create dependence. So it's, I think, it's time to stop that. There is a lot to do, but one rule or one thing, all of this is a big opportunity. It should stay a support for the decision, but not decision-making.
Fantastic. I knew you were the right person to ask that question of. I'd now like to turn to Egils Levits, till recently the president of Latvia. And President, could you answer the question, can states secure digital sovereignty without accelerating fragmentation? It builds on what others have been addressing. And if you could focus particularly on the European Union. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Also, first of all, national digital sovereignty, I think, is not possible with the exception of US and China. This is really national digital sovereignty. For all other countries, maybe there is some potential on national level, but the best potential to build a third digital power is for Europe as a whole, which consists of several countries. The situation today is that Europe is structurally dependent on US and to lesser extent to Chinese technology, clouds, chips, platforms, especially artificial intelligence. And there are two problems. The first problem is that already now, in order to keep the society's economy running, we should rely on artificial intelligence and all digital technologies. If they would be stopped, then of course the economy would also be stopped. This is the first. And the second is that artificial intelligence especially and digital infrastructures are not neutral tools. They embed values, ideologies, worldviews, and so we should be aware of that. For Europe, there are three strategic options. The first option is to accept long-term dependence from the United States, more precisely from 5 to 10 big tech companies, or more precisely from 5 to 10 tech oligarchs. Should Europa do that? So this is option one. Option two is to be more open to China. And China is quite cooperative in comparison. It is different as US. Or the third option is to build Europe as its own digital power. There is a project of European digital sovereignty. It's for informational age, an old project, I think 10 years old. So, and first, which was very loud in this respect, was President Macron. But also in European Commission, the European Parliament, there was always discussions whether we should build, so to say, Europe's digital sovereignty. Digital sovereignty does not mean, despite the word, autarky. That means autonomy. Autonomy means that we can do what we are regarding as right, but it is not autarky. And of course, simply, generally, I would say that this option is preferable. The rationale is that whoever controls artificial intelligence can shape information, economy, and security. And now Europe is not in position to do it. The trust in US is in the recent, is limited, I would say, simply. And dependence on China increases exposures also to authoritarian value system. The main challenges, how to achieve that, is that in principle, the technical potential for Europe is there. There is also other, India, Japan is also, to some extent, there is a good potential. But in Europe is, I think, the best potential outside China and outside US to build such digital sovereignty. What is needed a political will and financial efforts. And there is also another thing what is needed. Development and maintaining the digital sovereignty needs also increased conflict capacity for Europe. Also to be ready to conflict with US, with China, also export controls, bans, tough regulations, and so on. Also more tougher foreign and industrial policy. It also needs, on European level, unity despite divergent short-time national interests. And I'm stressing short time because in long run, it's all in interest in all European states to develop such autonomy. Geopolitical dimension, I would say that also a liberal, digitally sovereign European Union can offer a third way between US and China for many countries in Latin America, in parts of Asia, and in Africa, to build a larger, not union, but a larger alliance in this respect. And what is needed, also, first of all, President Macron, I said already, is very loud in this respect, also others, but it is necessary also formally to decide that digital sovereignty is a core objective of the European Union, investing heavily in chips and so on, use public procurement to build European and diversified capacity. And in Germany, there was recently a discussion whether we should prefer European companies. And I think it is needed. But I think the decision was not to do it. Yeah. It's, yeah, okay. Yep. This is one important point. Then, of course, tighten security and transparency rules for non-European tech companies in critical sectors. That's what you mentioned also. And develop digital alliances and projects with like-minded and swing states. So that there is a potential. I don't know whether we will use this potential, but I would prefer that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Levits. That's a fantastic analysis of how the EU and other blocs can navigate in this multipolar world. I'd love now to turn to my good friend, Vladimir Norov, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan in the past, as well as Secretary General of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And anybody who follows you on LinkedIn can see what a thought leader in this space on technology governance in Central Asia you have become. And as well, I think, an important bridge builder between China and the West on technological governance. So it's a delight to have you on this panel. My question to you is, what ethical and operational limits must be placed on autonomous and AI-enabled weapons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And as we hear today, the artificial intelligence is developing at...
Microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. As today all speakers said that artificial intelligence developing at unprecedented speed. Today, more than 700 million over the world using very advanced AI system every week. At the same time, we're looking at large investment in data centers and computing infrastructure, so that this rapid progress will likely continue. And it predicted that 2026, 2030, more than $1 trillion will be invested in developing data centers. So certainly, in the same time as we're looking for benefits of the AI in many areas of economy and our life, but at the same time, artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming the global security environment. In 2023, I participated in XIII, the Forum for Security in Beijing. It was the first time when they discussed AI security, and they gathered the specialists, Chinese specialists, in the same time Indian and American, first time American from Stanford University, and they are focused that autonomous weapon system and AI-enabled military technology are becoming a part of modern defense capability. At the same time, autonomous weapon system and AI-enabled weapons pose significant ethical, legal, and operational risks, which are being discussed in international forums, as I told, and in framework United Nations General Assembly. And I think that after this discussion on XIII Forum, the Xi Jinping visit to San Francisco, and they had the meeting with Mr. Biden and focused on creating some global system of regulating of AI. And the first, their key recommendation can be summarized as follows: that first, the principle of meaningful human control. It was said with the Prime Minister that the human beings must remain the final authority in decisions involving the use of lethal force. AI system may assist with the information processing and target analysis, but the ultimate decision to use force must remain under human responsibility. Machines cannot make moral or contextual judgment required by international humanitarian law. Second, AI-enabled weapons must fully comply with the rules of international humanitarian law, including the principles of distinction, proportionality, and military necessity. In real battlefield conditions, distinguishing between combatants and civilians often requires complex human judgment that current AI system cannot reliably replicate. Third, strong operational safeguards are essential. Autonomous systems must include reliable mechanism allowing human operators to intervene, override, or stop the system at any moment. Fail-safe mechanism, emergency shutdown functions, and safe standby models should be mandatory to prevent unintended escalation or loss of control. Today, we're witnessing as AI agentic began very actively implemented in many countries, mostly in developed countries, and there are more companies began very actively in this way, and they're looking that the AI agentic will unlock from 2.5 to 4.6 trillion dollars. But at the same time, we will achieve more benefits. When this AI agentic will be implemented in military, certainly we will face a lot more such challenges. That's why the international community should consider a risk-based classification of AI-enabled weapon system. Some systems operating under strict human supervision may be acceptable, while systems capable of selecting and engaging targets without human intervention may require strict limitation or even prohibition. Secretary General, United Nations, Mr. He said that till end of 2026, it should be prohibited using AI in this unmanned, these autonomous military equipments. Greater transparency, testing, and accountability are necessary. AI-enabled military systems should undergo rigorous testing, ethical review, and certification procedures similar to those applied in other high-risk technological sectors. Finally, we must address broader strategic risk. Unregulated development of autonomous weapons could intensify global military competition and increase the risk of miscalculation between major powers. We're now witnessing in the war in the Middle East, now in Iran, how these new technologies began to be more sophisticated than $1 million some rockets and so on. International dialogue, particularly within the framework of the United Nations, remains essential to prevent destabilizing the development and the proliferation of such technologies to non-state actors. Artificial intelligence will continue to influence the future of security. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned President Biden, President Xi's meeting, which talked about AI and nuclear. I think there's a lot of hope that the meeting between President Trump and President Xi, either this April if it happens or later, could also address the problems of out-of-control risk, open claw, agentic AI, and AI bio. I think these things require some direct bilateral cooperation between China and the US, despite the geopolitical and commercial challenges that presents. So finally, I really warmly welcome Asmitha Satyarthi. You are the CEO of the Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion. And for your 3 minutes, I have a very simple question, which is, what is compassionate AI?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. It's an honor and privilege to be here today. As we're coming to a close of the Baku Forum, I want to echo my fellow panelists' sentiments and express our deepest gratitude to the board and leadership of NGIC, to Rashad and his team, and the scores of dedicated, passionate volunteers whose resilience and commitment has made this very important forum possible. I want to give them a big round of applause. Thank you. I want to read out a news headline I saw this morning. It went something like, Gemini said they could only be together if he killed himself. Soon, he was dead. This fellow was a man called Jonathan Gavilis, and his father is now suing Google in the first wrongful death case in the US. Whether Google is culpable or not, we have seen so many instances of the responsibility gap existing. It is assumed that the recent airstrike on the girls' school in Iran was also a mistake potentially used by AI. Israel's Lavender AI's companion system, Where's Daddy, actually targets civilians. They trace family homes of low-ranking officials and are actually allowed a hit rate of 15 to 20 civilians per low-ranking individual. At the World Economic Forum this year, where we were joined by His Excellency Martin Chungong, we came across a young girl whose deepfake nude video had circulated across her university and caused unprecedented psychological damage. We do realize that this could happen to any of us, any of your children, your grandchildren, any of our brothers or sisters. 88% of teenagers today are talking to ChatGPT and not their friends or families. Do we not wonder what is that doing to their ability to form human connections? Friends, there is no doubt as to the incredible positive impact AI can have on human lives. But at the same time, we must be cognizant of the damage and the ever-widening gap that is happening, that is increasing between the systems as well as the people. Okay, is it better? Can you all hear me? Okay. Yeah, I was saying that the ever-widening gap between the systems that are being created and the people that are being most marginalized and impacted is something that we must absolutely be cognizant of. There are risks that we look at, unfortunate side effects, whether it is environmental damage, loss of jobs, or cognitive declines. These are not externalities. They must be considered as loud signals that something is not right. That we must look at how we're designing systems of AI at the fundamental stage, encoded at the training itself. To give you an example, somebody mentioned facial recognition. There is MIT research that shows that there was a commercial facial recognition done where 37% of dark-skinned women were not recognized, as opposed to only 0.8% of light-skinned men. Why is that? It's because the data sets that are being used to create these solutions have this bias, right, deeply embedded in them. A biased human being only impacts a few other human beings. But a biased AI, think about the damage that it can do. A divisive AI, an unjust AI, it makes the same decision for every human being, millions of them across the board, every institution, every country that chooses to embrace it. What was already biased and dominant becomes even more so. What was more marginalized becomes even more so, right? And then ultimately becomes part of our collective human truth, unfortunately. So now the question is, what can we do to prevent harm before it causes damage at scale? Compassion, right? Compassion has traditionally been seen as a soft emotion, as empathy, as charity, as sympathy. Our founder, Nobel Peace Laureate Kailash Satyarthi, has challenged this definition. He says that compassion is the most powerful force there is. Because this is when you believe that somebody else's problem is your own problem. When you feel the suffering of others as your own and you take pragmatic action to end the problem. What we are asking for is compassion to be used as a design principle at the structural fundamental stage of AI. We welcome regulations. We are very excited about the recent EU regulations. But regulations are not enough. We have to look at how we're training the data sets. What education are we giving to the coders or the technicians at the grassroots? We have to structurally solve the problem. And compassionate AI, actually, what it does is it understands contexts very deeply. It preempts harms and embeds these structural and systemic solutions right at the formational, at the fundamental level. So friends, whether it's the Inter-Parliamentary Union or the world leaders and the parliamentarians present here today, we are giving a strong call for compassionate AI, where compassion is embedded as a design principle, and justice, equality, peace, and sustainability are embedded at every level as we think about, ideate, and create AI algorithms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We've got 6 minutes left. I'm going to see if there's one question from the audience. Yes, right in the front row. There's a microphone, please. Just there. Just here? No, sorry, the front row.
Thank you so much. So in every conference which I'm attending recently, there are sessions which are talking about the ethics of AI all the time, while right away there are active conflicts happening where autonomous weapons are being used. And the question again of who should be held accountable for that is not answered yet. So there is a gap between the conversation and the reality all the time. I think some of us have been following what is happening between the Pentagon and Anthropic, for example. So these big AI companies which are leading the tech, again, is it the country or the company which will be in charge of the future of humanity?
That's a great question, thank you. I'll take the second one as well, and we'll take them together, and then people can choose which one to reply to.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Naughton. I'm a former Minister for Technology in Ireland. And I worked with Tulia and the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and we developed a set of global standards, an ethical standard for science and technology, which is technology neutral. And we got the agreement of 183 parliaments globally to that. And in that context, I'm picking up on the point that Silvana made earlier on regarding governance and the need to have robust regulation. Can I ask, do we not now need a global coalition of the willing to lead a global set of principles that has equal input from the global south, that sets out the gold standard, and then push for the universal adoption and enforcement by the regulatory experts who actually understand the scientific technology? And the reason I make that argument is twofold. One, we're never going to get unanimity at UN under the current environment.
Have to stop
and secondly, AI is becoming so complex now, it's impossible for the politicians to actually understand the implications of the decisions they're making.
Wonderful, thanks so much. I'd love to take more questions. Well, just quickly, if you can pass the microphone to the person, the woman just in the fourth row back, just there. And then I'm going to ask you for a sentence each from the panel to ask one of these.
My name is Vera O'Donnell. I'm an Irish diplomat and formerly UN. My question is for Mr. Vladimir Norov. I was very tickled by your presentation, and my question is, who do you envisage writing the algorithms for the automated weapons to make sure that criteria such as distinction are involved? And how do you see us managing those parties to ongoing and potential conflicts who have not acceded to Geneva Conventions or its protocols, actually abiding by those principles? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perhaps, since you mentioned my name, Mr. Norov, would you like to reply?
Thank you very much. These very rightly questions, because it discussed the properly using AI in military, first of all, and in United Nations it was some order by Secretary General to establish some committee which should prepare a report for, on the basis of the report, to take decision of establishing international organization for atomic energy controlling system, the same for military. But till now not yet adopted, because they are, first of all, the leading countries was against it. And at the same time, as you know, the other Sam Altman, OpenAI, he proposed in India summit of AI summit to establish the same system of on global level, international atomic energy controlling system. But at the same time, it is very serious challenge for a nation when is uncontrolled military automated equipment will be used actively by this. That's why it is important, first of all, organize special research center in framework of United Nations where experts can change information. As I told you, the Chinese first made such.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We've got 2 minutes left for the panel, so very quick. I need just bite-sized sentences each. President Levits.
Yeah, you asked concerning autonomous weapons. There are certain legal principles, not a legal convention now, but legal principles. And one of the legal principles was also set 2001 by European Court of Human Rights. And the case was the following. The 3 persons were convicted for shooting of refugees on the border between East Germany and West Germany. And the 3 persons were the soldier who shot the person, the Minister of Defense, and the President of the state. And all 3 were convicted. All 3 belong to the chain of command. And this is a general principle that a person who gave the order to use this autonomous weapon is responsible, and even President of the state, if it is so.
Thank you. So Silvana, Koch-Mehrin, very quickly, and then the last word will be with Prime Minister Mehdi Kiviniemi.
Perfect, thank you very much. I'd like to answer the question of Almira, the senator from Egypt, and also the friend from Ireland. On, I think, the case in the US, where it's the company having the ethical concerns and drawing the red lines, and it's not the government, that the government is wanting to trespass those red lines, shows this is not the kind of government that would answer the concerns that citizens have, and the data, again, quoted by Mari and others. And you mentioned the China-US collaboration. I think the reality will be that this dependency that Europe and the rest of the world currently has of either US or China, this is not possible to maintain. We need to get to the independence, and there is things underway. If it's about payment systems, it's about own cloud, it's about own search engines. This is not from one day to the next, but the good news is a lot of talent is exiting those countries. And final word, this will not go without tension. When Denmark's main cities decided to move away from US-operated cloud systems, there were open threats coming from the other side of the Atlantic. And we will face more and more of that, the more independence we will acquire. And in terms of global one...
I better stop you there. Thank you so much.
We have 34 countries involved in setting the standards, also for transparency on algorithms, and I think that's a good start.
Thank you. Final word to Prime Minister Mehdi Kiviniemi.
Thank you very much. I would like to answer the question raised by the former Minister of Ireland of Technology. So I fully agree with you that what we need is, and as I said in my introduction earlier, that we need global rules, and that is something what we must strive for and work for. But I'm not as pessimistic as you are when it comes to the work undertaken by the UN. So of course, the best solution would be that if we could use that platform for forming the global rules. But if that is not the case, then we have to move quickly and be ready to find a coalition of willing. And I'm sure that the European Union is one of those players which would play a big role in trying to find as many countries covering solutions as possible, because that is when it comes to innovations and development of AI also into the direction which is best for the humankind, the best way to go.
Thank you. And our final word to our host, the Minister of Digital Development.
Thank you. Answering the question about the autonomous weapons, as humanity, we, 50 years ago or 70 years ago, agreed that because of the disruptive nature of nuclear weapons, we agreed that it should be strictly controlled. And since we are also seeing that disruptive nature of autonomous weapons could also be very much damageful for the humanity, we should come up with some solution how to strictly control the export, import of such weapons. And by doing that, we shouldn't be staying in front of the development, and we won't be able to, because the countries like China and US, they will anyway develop these weapons. But we have to come up with a solution or a framework how to make sure that they are not becoming disruptive and they are not being used in the future.
With that very wise hope, please join me in thanking this remarkable panel.